Jane Farago is the General Manager of the Net Balance Foundation, a not-for-profit organisation aligned to Net Balance, the company, that utilises the company's capabilities for common good research, reduced rate consulting, training and events. So it's a bit like Audette's ISIS setup that we heard about yesterday. Jane has previously been involved in work preparing for the National Disability Insurance Scheme and has worked with a number of environment-focused not-for-profit organisations. Please make her very welcome. Thank you, Jane.
Thank you. Well, this is a big moment for me. I never thought I'd get asked to be Ita Buttrose's warm-up act. So I'm going to do my best to warm you up a bit because it is that afternoon slot after we've enjoyed our lunch. Can I ask everybody, please, who can stand, to stand up? Have a bit of a stretch while you're there. Okay, could I please ask you to stay standing up if you're with an organisation that is measuring its financial impacts, that you kind of know more or less your financial bottom line. Stay standing up. If anybody sat down just then, I think you need to go back and have some serious conversations. All right, can you please stay standing up if your organisation is in any shape or form measuring its social impact? Do you know what your social bottom line is? Got a few ski exercises going on here. We're not sure. Maybe we are, maybe we're not. Okay, lots of people still standing up. Can you please stay standing up if your organisation is measuring its environmental impacts? If, for example, you know what your carbon emissions are. All right, I think we want a round of applause for the people who are still standing. And you guys can sit down now. Now, that's completely normal at the moment, that picture, and it would be pretty much the same if I went and did that with a business audience. But I think, well, I hope that if I came back and did that exercise in about 20 years' time, that pretty much everyone would still be standing up. Because at the moment, using the words of Joseph Stiglitz, we are steering our organisations with a faulty compass. So I want to talk about the big picture of social and environmental challenges that face us in the coming century. I want to talk about why we should be measuring our impact and how that can help us to understand our impact, and that can enable us to multiply our impact. So let's have a little look at that compass. We know we need to measure money. So when we talk about sustainability in this sector, it's usually financial sustainability that we're talking about. And there is a good reason to have that focus. Now, measuring money has a long pedigree. We've been refining it over hundreds of years. You can go off to university to learn how to do it. And we expect to have dedicated professionals within our organisations taking care of that, whether it's just the treasurer on the committee through to a whole department with a CFO. But this is the not-for-profit sector, right? We're not here to make money, we're here to make impact. So if we're not measuring that impact, then we don't know if we're succeeding in our core business and whether we're spending those precious dollars effectively. If we're about change, how do we know that we're making change happen and how much of that change our organisation is responsible for? Now, social impact measurement is in its infancy. So there's a frenzy of activity going on in universities and think tanks trying to refine a robust methodology for it. And there's a lot of conferences like today just looking at social impact measurement. But if we're honest, the whole field is still feeling its way. So Net Balance, for example, is a world leader in social return on investment. That's because we've done about 20 of them. And you can come and do a 2-day course with us and learn how to do it. And it's a good course, but compare that with an accountant's training. But nevertheless, even at this stage of development, the methodology does give us a lot of insights that will help us to understand the change that we're creating. And of course, it's a powerful tool to use with our funders because you can actually demonstrate the effectiveness of your programs. So we have to measure money. We want to measure impact, social impact, a lot of us are. And what about environmental impact? Why do we need to measure that? We're not BHP, we're a community organisation. Do we really need to be measuring that? Well, I feel that there's often this disconnect between those with a social focus and those with an environmental focus. So sometimes it can feel like environmentalists care more about trees or orangutans than they do about people. And I think in the social sphere, sometimes we get the feeling there's this attitude of, well, you know, I'd love to care about the environment, but actually I can't afford to worry about tomorrow. I'm busy dealing with people who can barely get through today. And I think it's a real shame that we have this disconnect, because I believe that if we could integrate our thinking, we could move forward much better. And the two things are so closely related. The environment is where we live. And I'd say community organisations fall into two camps: those that are already dealing with environmental issues and those that will be pretty soon. So if you're a sporting organisation or a local council, I don't need to tell you the impact of long-term drought on playing fields and what that does to your ability to roll out your programs and what that does to all the social benefits that brings, the health benefits, the sense of purpose that you can give to young people, the social cohesion and community building that comes around sport. If you work with the elderly or with infants, I don't need to tell you the impact of a prolonged heat wave like we experienced in Victoria earlier this year, and that we can expect to experience a lot more often in the future. If you're with a relief agency, I don't need to tell you the impact of bushfires, floods, and other extreme weather events that, again, we can expect to see more of. And if you're in poverty relief, what would a food crisis mean to you? In the next 40 years, humanity has to find as much food as it has done in the last 8,000. So what's that going to do to food prices? And who's going to miss out? If you're in housing, what's a growing population going to do to housing affordability? Now, ACOS has already identified that climate change is going to hit the disadvantaged first and hardest, and is that any surprise? And as we start to see increasing environmental pressures, and that combined with a growing population, we're going to see threats to social cohesion, we're going to see an increase in mental health issues, substance abuse, etc. I could go on, but look, I don't want you to get too depressed. And don't worry, I am coming to solutions. So now, if my cheap emotional ploys haven't got to you, then I'm going to give you some more hard-nosed reasons why maybe you should be thinking about reporting, measuring and reporting your impacts. So first of all, you might not have a choice about it, so government and corporate funders are already starting to ask questions about social evaluation. But the process of measuring your social and environmental impacts is actually a great tool for stakeholder engagement, because that's your starting point. The first thing you do is you identify who your stakeholders are, and you go and ask them what matters to them about your organisation and its programs. And if you go and put those findings into a sustainability report or an integrated report, and here are some examples from not-for-profits in Australia and around the world, then that gives you another great opportunity for engagement with your stakeholders. It's good governance. So going through this process will identify risks and opportunities for your organisation. It can help to guide your strategy. Your staff are values-driven people. They care about this stuff. So show them that you care too. And your organisation is values-driven, isn't it? And wouldn't it reflect those values to be measuring and reporting on your impacts? Are you going to let business take the moral high ground here? Because when I went to look at the Global Reporting Initiative database, I found 136 Australian sustainability reports, and only 5 of them came from not-for-profits, and one of those was the Accountants Association. And speaking of businesses, as large corporates become increasingly sustainability conscious, and they are, being sustainability savvy yourself could really be a competitive advantage when you go seeking funding. And the field is wide open at the moment to take a leadership position. And if you're competing for clients, it could also be a selling point for them, because chances are they would like an organisation that can demonstrate the change that it makes And chances are they would like an organisation that is environmentally responsible and can show that. But the most important reason to measure your impact is that it's the first step to understanding your impact, both positive and negative, and how those impacts are created. And once you understand your impacts, from there you can start to improve them. So at Net Balance, we've done social return on investment studies where we found programs that were creating no social value. And those organisations were delighted to know that, because it meant they could stop putting money into programs that were not working. And it meant they could think about how to improve those programs next time around. And if we go out and do an environmental audit, the chances are that we'll find some opportunities for energy efficiency or waste management that are actually going to save money. So measuring and reporting, it's got many benefits, but I don't want to downplay the costs. It is a significant investment in time and resources, particularly when you're learning and you haven't got the processes in place yet. So I know it could be a long road for you. But just think back to the start of this talk when we were all standing up. We're all measuring our finances, and actually that's hard too. Think of the resources that go into that. Think of the staff who spend their days measuring finances. It's just that we have the systems in place and we regard it as non-negotiable. Well, I'm here to suggest that measuring your social impact and your environmental impact should be non-negotiable too. So if you're a large organisation, I think it's time to get with the program and start reporting. If you're a small organisation, you do what's realistic for you. So make a start by just putting it on the agenda for your board, for your executive. Identify who your stakeholders are, go out and talk to them. Even just that process alone could identify some ideas for improvement, because that's what measuring is really about. It's the improvements that come as a result of it. So measuring impact is itself about impact. Now, I could just leave the talk there, but I've got another 10 minutes to fill. And because most of us aren't yet measuring our impacts and getting those specific learnings, I'm going to go off on slightly a different tack here. So what I'm going to do is give you some cheat notes that might help you to think about your impacts, even if you haven't got to measuring them yet. I'm going to share with you a framework for thinking about how your organisation interacts with the larger systems, and I'm going to throw out just a few ideas for you to chew on, and then I'm going to throw it over to you. What I really want from you here is to lift your head up and look beyond your core concern and see how your organisation fits into the big picture of the social environmental challenges that face us. If we can integrate our thinking about these things, I believe that we can find some innovative solutions that solve multiple issues together. And there are a whole group of new and established organisations that are starting to think this way. And one of them is Oxfam. And I think it's interesting that it's a development agency because they are increasingly finding themselves dealing with social issues that have environmental causes. So this model I'm going to show you comes from Kate Raworth, who works with Oxfam in the UK. And it shows the connection between the social and the environmental with beautiful simplicity. So here we have the planetary boundaries. This is the limits to which we can push the environment before the environment starts pushing back on us rather uncomfortably. This model was developed by the Stockholm Resilience Centre, and they identified 9 planetary boundaries. And they also identified that we've already overshot 3 of them. That's climate change, biodiversity loss, and the nitrogen cycle. Other ones include freshwater use, land use, for example. And what Kate Raworth did was she came along and drew another circle on the inside and said, well, if that's the environmental ceiling, then what's missing here is the social floor, the social foundation below which we have unacceptable human deprivation. So in there go poverty, inequality, injustice. And she identified 11 areas there. And she called this the donut. And the space between the 2 circles is a safe and just space for humanity. So what we need to do is we all need to get inside the donut. Now, there's a couple of things about this model that interest me. One is that the outer circle is actually defined in terms of the inner circle. So I think Douglas Adams put this beautifully. He said, don't worry about the planet. The planet is old enough and big enough to look after itself. What we need to worry about is whether it's a planet that's capable of sustaining us within it. So if we push on those outer boundaries, we're going to find ourselves in trouble with the inner ones, for example, without enough food to eat. The other thing that's interesting to me about this model is that that inner circle is slowly moving outwards. So if we went back in history, it would be pretty tiny because the concept of human rights didn't really exist. Slavery was completely acceptable, for example. But if we think about modern Australian society and what we consider to be the bare necessities, well, you could easily get on the front page of the Herald Sun if you have a family that doesn't have access to light after dark, or clean drinking water delivered inside their home, or a fridge to keep their food cold, or heating in winter. And what about broadband access? Is that a necessity now? Well, our government thinks so. I wouldn't want to be without it. And of course, people in the developing world also want to have these once luxuries, now essentials. So the challenge that faces us is, how do we integrate our understanding of these things? How can we provide increasing amenity to a growing population without the impact? And the irony that we see here is that the environmental challenges that we're facing are a kind of side effect of the extraordinary progress and prosperity that we've enjoyed over the last 100 years or so. And the same is true of many social challenges. Wealth brings with it many benefits, but it does not bring social cohesion. And that prosperity also makes us blind or indifferent to the challenges. For most of us, life is just too good to worry. While we can still sit sipping our cafe lattes and picking out shoes, it's just hard to take impending global catastrophe really seriously. I'm all right, Jack. Or in this case, Jill. But we are not all right. The problems are there, and they're big and hairy and complex. And you know what? We cannot wait for the UN to solve them. And we can't wait for government to solve them. And we can't wait for big business to solve them. They all have a role to play, but so do we. And while technology will help us to work through these problems, it's not going to be the big fix. This calls for more than technological innovation. This calls for social innovation, and that's where you guys come in. Because you care about community, and you understand community, and you're full of ideas about community. And community is going to be the locus of the future economy. So community is where we're seeing some exciting innovation from people who have both social and environmental benefits on their radar. So one example of this is collaborative consumption. This is where you buy access to stuff instead of owning the stuff. And the classic example is car sharing. So instead of spending a fortune on a ton of metal that's incredibly resource intensive to make, you buy access to a car when you need it. And because our cars spend 90% of their time sitting parked somewhere, one share car can service the same amount of journeys as 13 privately owned vehicles. And collaborative consumption has another great benefit. Because it's all about sharing, it builds networks, whether local or global. And it often uses technology to bring together people with complementary needs. So one example is Airbnb. So this is a service that matches people who want travel accommodation with people who have spare space. And that got me thinking about how we could apply that kind of needs-matching technology within the social sector and maybe kill two birds with one stone. So could we have an app for this? Or what about this one? And how about this? Because, you know, we hear so much talk about collaboration in this sector, but what we don't see a lot of is collaboration between social and environmental NGOs. And what could we create if we could combine a social and an environmental outlook? So what does this mean for you? What could it mean for your organisation to approach its work through the context of the bigger picture? What role could it play? How could it influence the systems that it's part of? Who could it team up with to explore new approaches? So look around this room. In the process of addressing the issue that you're passionate about, could it be that you're actually creating problems for someone else in this room? And could you instead be intentionally helping them? How could you multiply your impact? So I've got just a few small ideas to get you started, and I'm sure you can come up with better ones and bigger ones. So let's start with fundraising. We heard before from somebody who was saying, should we be taking money from gambling? So what would fundraising look like if it was aiming for a triple bottom line return? So if you're making money by selling what I call landfill in waiting, well, I think you need to get creative. So here's just a little example. These are brooches that are sold by the International Women's Development Agency. So it raises money for them to roll out their programs. And these brooches are made by women from Burma living on the Thai border, and they're women who have fled poverty, violence and trafficking. So you're providing them with employment and purpose. And it's a lovely little piece of jewellery, so it's not going to go in the bin. And they get sold, among other places, by the National Australia Bank. So they get to benefit by association with a cause that's aligned to their values. So it's creating benefit all over the place. What about your investments? If your organisation is lucky enough to have reserves that it's invested, do you know where they're invested? Do you know what you're invested in? And are you comfortable with those things? Are they aligned with your values? Are you comfortable with making your money from alcohol? And maybe you are, I mean, that's fine. But what about gambling? And what about coal? So you're about to hear a lot of noise in the next few weeks about divesting from fossil fuels. And the Uniting Church of New South Wales and ACT has just made the decision to transfer its investments out of fossil fuels and into renewable energy. Procurement. When your organisation spends money, where does it go to? There's a whole world of social enterprise out there that's waiting for your money where you can get what you need and also benefit them. So next time you get catering, you could use Con's Asylum Seekers Refugees Centre. Next time you're getting Christmas cards, you could get them from Q Art Studio, from their artists with intellectual disabilities. There's loads more examples I could put up there. But I know your programs is where most of your money goes. So what would your programs look like if they were embracing social and environmental impacts? How could you kill a few birds with one stone? Here's one example of a local charity. This is Second Bite. So they collect food that would otherwise go to waste and they send it on to people who need feeding. So it diverts food from landfill and all those carbon emissions, environmental tick, feeds the disadvantaged, social tick. And I'm going to leave you with my favourite example from the eco-social space. And this is the town of Todmorden in England. And they have reinvented not only their landscape and their eating habits, but their community and even their economy through a program of vegetable gardening. So they have planted veggie patches all over their town. They're outside, excuse me. They're outside the police station, they're outside the hospital, they're outside the school. So, and they've got everybody in the town gardening. So they've got the school kids gardening. You can see it's even in the cemetery there. Nobody gets up. It's all over the whole place. So they've got the ladies from the church gardening, they've got people with disabilities gardening, they've got everybody gardening. And it's feeding into their economy. So it's done an incredible job of building that community. But they now actually have vegetable tourism. There are people who come to Todmorden to take photographs of vegetable patches. And this photo is one of my favourites. So this is a local shop selling produce made by the local high school, and the funds from that will go back to the local high school. So it's keeping all that circular local economy going. If you want to hear more about Todmorden, there's a lovely talk on TED Talks by Pam Warhurst, and she's very entertaining. And this is just an example of the kind of thing that can happen when you have both social and environmental benefits on your radar. So I hope I've given you just a few ideas about how we might integrate our thinking about social and environmental issues and what can happen when we apply that thinking. And if we could cross-pollinate all the brilliant ideas and wisdom and experience just in this room, think what we could do to address those challenges that are coming at us in the next century. And I hope you might have got a little bit of an idea about how you can measure your impact so that you can start understanding your impact and so that you can multiply your impact. And at this point, I turn it over to you. Go forth and multiply.
Jane, that was wonderful. We will go forth and multiply the ideas. We're not used to telling people to do that here, but that is a nice way to say it. We have many other ideas in this room, some really good thinking. So let's open it up there. Jane, I think you really did challenge us to lift our heads too, and to do something that I would have possibly thought was something that we need to do, to take a longer view of social impact and environmental impact. But it's not a longer view, is it? It's right now.
It is right now. It's pretty urgent.
Yep. So, do we have some contributions to make from the floor here? Wave your hands about. I can't see anyone. You've stunned them, Jane. Here we go, in the middle here. Thank you.
How's that?
Good.
Just getting back to your example with the dolls and the brooches and the banks, and I guess looking at, say, Oxfam and their sort of retail space, have you got any other examples of where, say, other not-for-profits have partnered with other not-for-profits that have been able to, I guess, sort of, combine that sort of social and environmental sort of impact in a way that sort of multiplied, as you're sort of suggesting?
I haven't. I spend quite a lot of time looking for them, and I don't know that they're not out there. It's actually quite a hard thing to search for. Google's not really equipped for it, because if you put social and environmental in, it's just hard to find the right search terms. And I tried to ask through my networks to get more local. I really wanted to put some local examples in. So I don't know if it's just all happening in England. I have to put that out to the rest of the room. I haven't heard many of those kind of collaborations.
Have you got an answer to that? Or, yeah. Would you like to just... And then we've got a question here, but there's some people here who have an answer to that question.
Mine's an answer.
Oh, okay. Please.
One of the things that has struck me since I've been... This is my 11th conference as well, and it dawned on me yesterday that we're attending a conference in a centre which pays no attention to water saving. All the toilets are the old style, single flush, and so on. And I think, that's an example of where all of us could be doing something different. Perhaps we should petition the racecourse to get them to change their use of water. Spend some of the money that they probably make from all that winning that goes on in this place. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm not an apologist for the racecourse at all, but this facility is going to be torn down in the next couple of years, so I guess that's part of the thing. So let's hope there's something sustainable that's built to replace it.
Hi. I'd just like to talk to you about a little project that we had in Alice Springs, where we are with, with Riding for the Disabled, and we have 3 horse paddocks, and the Alice Springs water, the rate of the water with the government has gone up considerably, but also when you're working in the paddocks with 2 sidewalkers and a leader and 4 horse legs and in a dry environment, for the children to have, without, being covered in dust, they needed proper watering. We were the only people in the whole of Blatherskite Park not on recycled water, because we're right next to the sewage ponds. And there was all sorts of issues about environmental, about, the recycled water. They use it at Werribee all the time at the Equestrian Centre. So we teamed up with a small local group, because we weren't even getting any joy with Water Smart. And this was a local group that was actually doing gardening as well, and we're doing their water smart programs. And together we combined, putting in, helping us, saving money, having recycled water in. They put the pipes in, power and water. In the end, they put a bit of pressure on them, and we've got the water on.
Fantastic.
And I have another one over here. Yeah, that's worth some applause, isn't it? That was a good idea.
Just one thing I have noticed in our area in West Heidelberg is a movement in West Heidelberg and beyond. It goes into towards Rosanna and McLeod as well as Heidelberg Heights, that the transition movement. If you're not aware of that, I'm assuming that Todd Morden is sort of an offshoot of that perhaps, but that is something well worth looking into. And if your community are certainly interested in supporting one another through either vegetable gardens or locally made products that you can purchase for your family and friends at Christmas time, there are many, many ways that you can do that within your own community by setting up small markets, seasonal markets, and particularly the Christmas ones go down really, really well. So those sorts of things can happen with collaboration of your local council donating their park and garden space. They will waive their permits, their permit fees. There are many, many ways you can do this.
Thank you. Okay, I have one back here, then one here, and is there one over there? And one here. So we've got the next four taken up.
Just mine was an idea we've been working on lately. We in Gladstone, and we have a lot of migrant population workers and people coming through the town. And we had a partnership, a relationship with conservation volunteers for a couple of years. And one of the things we've been thinking about is it's not really that expensive, but get seedlings and get migrants to plant their roots in the town as a way of, an activity to foster integration and also contribute to the environment.
Just down in front here.
Thank you again. This has been a wonderful conference. We keep thinking the next speaker can't be any better, but of course they are. They just keep going. It's wonderful. I'm Heather from locally here in the eastern suburbs in Ashwood. I'd like to say about three very quick things. Our program's been running since 1986. It looked at exactly what you said. There were people out there that were ageing who needed an affordable gardening service, and we took people with an intellectual disability who needed some support to make good decisions but wanted to work, and we married the disabled with the people that are aged. So immediately we've grown to a program with 700 individual residents that are serviced once a fortnight by 33 people with an intellectual disability. We've expanded that to ironing and cleaning as well, but it's primarily lawn maintenance. Now, along the way, the Waverley Council has become Monash Council. They've got fruit trees in their parks instead of growing just ordinary trees. They're putting, with a group of local people, and the fruit is then distributed, which grew again to another program called Abundance, which is only small, but people like ourselves that go into aged people's gardens see the plums, we pick the plums, they're then distributed to the needy.
That's great. Lovely to
Yeah.
hear.
Right over here on your right, Joan. But you might want to make a response to some of these. They're just great
lovely.
ideas,
it's
aren't
lovely
they?
to hear all the ideas coming through. I guess the only thing I would add maybe is that whilst I've got absolutely nothing against vegetables and trees and all, the environment is broader than that. So there's all kinds of things that you can be doing that are not directly about nature.
Yep.
Hi, I'm Nat from Nimbin. You all know me by now. And look, I just want to let you know we've got a website, www.nnit.org.au. On that you'll find we have a massive community sustainability plan, has 9 key focus areas. There's loads of tools on there. You guys are welcome to go there because our mission is to get all of you to be sustainable and the whole planet to be sustainable. We have the first community-owned solar farm in Australia. The money that we derive from that solar farm goes directly into our sustainability community development work. As a result of our food security work in the last 4 years, we've improved local food production by 20%. That local food production, we're talking organic and biodynamic food production. We've got loads of stuff going on sustainability. It's our big mission. It's what we do in our community development work. And you don't have to start from scratch. You can go to our website and steal all of our stuff because that's why we put it there for all of you. So get on board. And I've got a professional crush on you now.
Thank you.
The professional crush theme's been running throughout the conference, Joan.
That's beautiful. And that does actually remind me, there is one other local example, is the Hepburn Wind Farm, which is a community-owned enterprise. But they haven't just stuck a wind farm in, and in fact it originated out of some really fierce opposition to wind farms when a company came in and wanted to put up a wind farm, and they all said, no, go away. And then it was one guy who was from Denmark, where wind farms are a part of life, and he just set up a trestle table on the high street for weeks and weeks and weeks and just talked to anybody who wanted to talk. And eventually they now have 2 wind farms which entirely power Dalesford, and they've got in a graffiti artist to draw a picture on one of the big wind farms, so they've made it a bit of a tourist destination. They have picnics out there, and they've really made it a focus of the community. So that is one local example.
Right down here in the front at the left of the stage. Thanks.
Hi, my name's Tanya Harper. I was a member of Good Shepherd Youth and Family Services, and we had a group there for underprivileged women. I became ambassador and have now stepped into community participation, which is the 3rd phase. So outlandish Good Shepherd Youth and Family Services for women. Getting back to the water, I was volunteering with Friends of Westgate, and we wanted the water from next door, the business next door, and it took a lot of negotiations and like 2 years for them to give us their drainage water. Just something as simple as that just took a few years. So
I never said it was easy.
No.
I'm going to talk about Food Bank because I look at community food share programs across Victoria, and this year we will rescue 700,000 kilos of food that would have gone to land waste. And we have a network of 500 agencies that are involved in emergency relief, and food security and nutrition is very important for rural communities. And it's about helping them to sustain their local community emergency relief programs, but also helping community to get involved in helping itself. So like one of the programs that was mentioned, we have a street harvest program where people that grow food in their backyards share it with neighbours, and the excess production is given to community meal programs or emergency relief programs. So it's about involving all of the community in helping itself, and significant amounts of food are rescued from landfill, which I think is a really good outcome.
Got one here, and then I have one over there, two over there now, and one up the back. So well, we start with there because you've got a microphone, haven't you? And then over to here, this table here.
Hi, my name's Irina. I'm here for the Pinewood Community Bank. But in response to what you were saying, 3 years ago, I've been to loads of weddings and I've seen a lot of waste and greed and enjoyment and fun. And and my girlfriend and I were so kind of thrown by this that we've spent the last 3 years researching, and we're about to launch an ethical and sustainable wedding registry where every single product has been researched, its provenance, where it's made, how it's made, and the materials inside it. And, you know, we have a little bit of background in these things, but it's taken us 3 years to do all that research, and we're about to launch. So don't be afraid if you see an opportunity, just get educated, give it a go. So thank you.
Wonderful, congratulations.
Just down here at the very front on the left.
Hi, Lisa Angus, Mission Australia. We have a fantastic situation in New South Wales. It started off with mattresses being picked up from certain councils because the cost of taking them to the tip as an extra thing was $70 per mattress. So we started that with a few, then it became more and more and more. So the mattresses then became a bulk that we had to get rid of somehow. So the brilliant idea was that we'd recycle the mattresses, getting people who were long-term unemployed and almost unemployable because of their criminal histories to come in and strip the mattresses. So then all the steel, the wood and the foam had to be recycled another way as well. So the steel was taken off to a steelery, what that word is. And the wood was chopped down into wood chips. That was then taken off and bought by other people. But the foam was actually still used as landfill. So that was a concern and really worried them, what can we do about this? So then they came up with the great idea that they had an ultraviolet light to actually cleanse the foam, because the problem was that it was meant to be unhygienic. Once that happened, then they got contracts from Rebel Sport to actually use it as filling for punching bags. So 99% of all mattresses in almost New South Wales now goes into complete recycling through our soft landing and featherweight. Yeah, it's really good.
That is just the kind of story that I love to hear, and I hope you get good publicity for that story, because that's the kind of story we need to.
We've won lots of awards, and increasingly so it's fantastic.
Do you find any stashes in those mattresses?
They've found some very interesting things, but my lips are sealed.
I have one right at the very back of the room, then I have one over here, and then one in the middle there. So.
Hi, my name's Maureen Gleeson. I'm from Hepburn Health Service in Daylesford. And I raise this not to be pedantic, but I think it's to support the fact that these issues are often very complex. The example you give about the wind farms in Daylesford, there's actually 2 wind turbines, and it's actually been really, really divisive in our community. And I think I bring this up for that reason, in the sense that this is hard work and you can bring in the best of ideas, but it can split communities. And as a health service, we work with people who live under the turbines, who are part of the building of the turbines, whose kids play together, and there are those issues that you deal with. And I think it's just a really good example of the complexity of what you try to do, even in a really, really small way. So,
thank you for that. I've obviously heard the story from the other side, so I'm actually pleased to hear that there is another side to it.
Hi, my name's Carol Owen. I'm from Leadership Victoria. I'm also an accountant, and that was very heartening for me to actually hear you talk about the SROI. And I'm a great proponent of that and fully supportive of that. But it is difficult for a lot of organisations or accountants to actually report on that. It's not something we've necessarily been trained to do, although it is coming more into our all the accounting material now that is around and about. But I would encourage everybody in this room, if your organisation is not actually reporting on on the social sustainability, that you actually ask them to do that. Could you work with them to actually develop your social impact reporting, because that's the way you'll actually get it changed and have it reported on. And it is very important, because it will actually help you to with other funding opportunities, because you can measure and you can establish measurements for for increasing your opportunities for funding, and it's a great way to do that. So that would be my approach, and that's something when I talk to people in my organisation that I'm asking them, so what's the social impact? What's the impact of what we are doing?
All right, well, we have a last one. No? It's been done, been covered. Okay, that's great. Look, I think we better call it a halt there. Jane, can you please join me in thanking Jane? That was really great, and you just saw how much energy that unleashed in the room. And this is near the end of the second day of a conference. So.
And thanks for not asking me any tough questions.